You left out a very important part of my bio. The first year I was in publishing was 1986. I got 900 rejection letters in a row. 30 publishers, 30 proposals, 900. Not that I have a chip on my shoulder. I love the book publishing industry because it's the smartest, coolest, best-looking group of people in any industry. You can talk to them about almost anything, and they'll find a way to be engaged with it. Before I start, I promised Susan we'd do a quick little poll. So first, raise your hand if you're in book publishing. Great. Put them down. Raise your hand if you work for one of the 10 biggest book publishers. Okay. Raise your hand if you work for a literary agent or are one. Raise your hand if you're an author. Okay. Raise your hand if you've been in the business for more than 5 years, more than 10 years. Okay. Raise your hand if you got a promotion in the last 18 months. Raise your hand if you think you're going to get a promotion in the next 18 months. Raise your hand if you think that you are one of the instigators of change in your organization. Interesting. Some honest people out there. Okay. Here's the thing. What I want to talk about isn't going to resonate with you unless we can come to an agreement about a couple things at the beginning. My thesis is that the future is not just like the past, but shinier. There are a lot of people who want technology and innovation to make their current job work better, as opposed to have it destroy or remake or reinvent what they do all day. So before we talk about books, I'm going to talk about the record industry because we can look at it as outsiders. This is what the record industry used to be about. The record industry used to be perfect. It was the perfect business. And there's a whole bunch of reasons. One reason is because this object, this analog object, wears out. So you need to buy a new one. If you share it, and I give it to you, then I don't have it anymore, so I got to buy another one. It's sold in a store that sold nothing but these. And there was a finite amount of shelf space. And if you were the person who could put these in the store, you could extract a significant tax and keep the money as opposed to giving it all to the artist because the artist needed you to do that. It was a perfect industry because it was the soundtrack of our lives. It was the theme of the senior prom. It was a perfect industry because radio existed for no other reason than to help them sell what they made. Free advertising all the time. It was a perfect industry because their customers were in their 20s, they had lots of disposable income, and they were all interested in this. All those things lined up, and it turned into the best gig ever. And then the future arrived. It was shinier. First it was CD, which meant it was digital, and now it's invisible, and now it's online. And now music hasn't gone away. In fact, there's more music than there's ever been before, by a lot. But the music industry is over. Now, you can be in the music industry, you can whine about that, and you can say it's not fair that we don't have a limo, it's not fair that Tower Records went out of business, it's not fair that we sell one copy and 10 end up being out there, it's not fair that radio stations are playing music from the 1960s and 70s. All these things aren't fair if your perspective is, wait a minute, technology is supposed to make my job better. But some people, like my friend Derek Sivers, looked at this and said, wow, what an amazing opportunity. More people listening to more music in more ways than ever before. More musicians making more music in more ways with a long tail of choices than ever before. Somebody is going to show up in the middle and change everything. And the people who chose to do that have been winning really big. And the people who are angry because it's not fair are in trouble. When I look at the future of the book publishing industry, an industry that I love and I have been in for 23 years, I see a lot of exactly the same structural things occurring. When I read what the lions of the industry say, what they say is, it's not fair. What they say is, how dare they? What they say is, we need more people to spend more time and more money doing things the way they used to. How dare an online store put a beloved independent out of business? How dare an electronic device come along that eliminates all the paper and all the printing and everything else, and has the audacity to sell something new for half the price that I'm going to sell it in paper. Don't you love books? Don't you love reading? And along the way, the powers that be in the book industry, because they like the book industry, that's why they're in it, get confused and think they're in the paper business, the execution of trees business, as opposed to being in the business finding, selecting, supporting, and marketing great ideas that aren't on video. So all of a sudden, and by all of a sudden I mean only 9 years it's been, the whole world turns upside down. If the people who ran this company, the building we're in right now, had thought about what they do for a living in 1999, they would have started Google. Because what is Google but an extraordinary reference tool? Like a card catalog, like an encyclopedia. They would have started Wikipedia. They would have figured out if your job is to find and support and market and spread these ideas, hi Phoebe, then you don't have to look and say, how do we cut down more trees and how do we make sure we get an end cap at Barnes & Noble? But if you're insisting on saying, how do I make sure that the right things are in the slush pile and the right things are getting to me from Binky Urban and that I'm paying the right advances and that the royalties are making me money so that we can do what we did 20 years from now, you're crazy. It's not going to work and it's going to be very painful. So what I want to do in the rest of my time is say to the people in this room, all of whom are going to get promoted in the next 18 months, if the industry thinks hard about it, if you could take initiative, if you could think hard about the opportunity, what would matter? What would you do? And how can you find the guts and the wherewithal to stop doing the thing that's going to make you fail and take a deep breath and start doing the things today when you still have a chance that are going to work? It's too late for Random House to start Google. But it is not too late for an extraordinary number of big innovations to come that don't cost very much money at all, that will get more people to read more stuff and give more authors more money and allow the people who are in the middle to figure out how to scale. So that's my agenda. If that's not the flight you want to be on, it's an excellent time to deplane. Okay, so if I think about 1963, why did we need book publishers? What function did a book publisher serve? Well, number one, there was a very small amount of shelf space in the bookstore. That's huge. Because there was a very small amount of shelf space, the bookstore owners were very careful about who got that space. And if you didn't have a sales force, you didn't get in front of the bookstore owner. And the salesperson had to show up, and there was so much pressure you had to make the books returnable. Because if you didn't, the person who owned the bookstore would say, fine, I'll just get them from Simon & Schuster instead, see ya. That pressure led to the system that we have today. But the bookstore owner says, okay, well, I can take some copies of this book, and I want to make this decision 9 months before the book comes out, because shipping takes a really long time, and we can't afford to move everything around really quickly. The book publisher takes a look and says, okay, we're only going to get a certain amount of shelf space. And once we get the shelf space, we're going to have to make sure the world knows this book is there. So what's the equivalent of radio? Every newspaper in America has a book review section. People talk about books. Cleveland Amory and the rest of the people at the Book of the Month Club could turn a book into a bestseller overnight. So you need a highly leveraged person who can go pitch this book to the Book of the Month Club, because if they picked it, it would win. Reader's Digest up in Pleasantville, if you can get the guys at Reader's Digest to run an excerpt in their magazine, which has a finite number of pages, then a lot of people would find out about it. So with all these things going on, clearly an arsenal of people is necessary to put the book into the world.